Welcome, everybody. My name is Krishan Murphy Spackman, and I am super excited to kick off our new video podcast series today. And I'm more excited about who is joining us to do it. I am the founder of PBisLife. This is sponsored by PBisLife. And before we get right into it, I just wanted to say I had the pleasure to meet this gentleman about 2 or 3 years ago. He was in town doing a boot camp, one of the things he's famous for, and we twisted his arm just enough to get us to do a private lesson for myself and a couple friends. And the lesson was great. And once you see who it is, you'll know his lessons are great too, from your own experience or maybe from reading a book or seeing another podcast that he's been in. But the man behind the mask, that's who we fell in love with. And the personality and the values and everything else, the family. So I'm honored to have him here as a friend and as a definite pickleball guru. So welcome, Prem Carnot, to the show. How are you doing today, Prem?
You appreciate you having me on your show. Before even we start, I really would like to thank you, but also, also give you some appreciation. I've seen you, as you said, a few years ago as a player, and I had the honor of actually coaching you and your teammates. And since then, I've seen you over time in the next year or so, and your game has radically improved. Someone who I think who's very, very passionate about the game and enthusiastic, and I see how much you've improved in your game, and I see that in your tournament results, but also your skill levels and the passion you put. And I know you're starting to teach also a little bit, and share some of the pickleball love to the people out where you live. And I'm grateful that you're doing it, because you definitely would infuse a lot of that passion and you have in you to multiple players. So I'm glad to have another person in not just to me, but to the world of pickleball, how much you will bring to. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's no joke when they see those shirts. Pickleball's addictive. Beware. It's
That's
just
right.
been a great outlet. Um, so before we jump right in, there's probably, I don't know, one or two people in the whole world that don't know the Pickleball Guru, from the books, the clinics, the boot camps, whatever it may be. So for those few people, new people into the sport, can you just give us some a kind of a overview of your background and how you got into pickleball and coaching and playing?
Yeah, that's a long story, but in a short manner, I'm originally from France, so I was born in France, and to a military family, and my dad was in the French forces, and then moved around the world a little bit wherever the French military presence was with my dad. So, as you call, a military brat. So went around the world, and at some point my dad retired and moved to India, and I was put into boarding schools in India. And during the time, I actually learned tennis, mostly grass court tennis, because that's the popular sport in tennis wise, at least in India, mostly on lawn tennis, as they call it. And I played that, and then a few years later, after college and graduation, I was in France, and I continued with tennis. But at this point in France, I didn't have any more grass courts, but mostly red clay courts. And then I obviously had to adjust my game and learned how to play tennis there again. And I was pretty good at tennis, but I really needed something else. So I ended up playing ping pong, and I got very good at it at some point. And ping pong actually elevated me all the way down to the national finals in France. And eventually, the gentleman who I lost to not only became silver medalist in Barcelona Olympics in 1992, and then was a world champion in 1993. So it was probably not that shabby in ping pong. And and during the course of my career as a hotel manager, I used to manage high-end five-star hotels in Paris, and I happened to meet the love of my life, I would say, and she was an American girl who was visiting Paris and staying there, and then one thing led to the other. Obviously, we started dating, and then a few years later, I moved to the U.S. And at that point, my wife at that time, she was from Michigan, but she didn't really want to be in the cold, and she really wanted to be somewhere near the water, but not cold enough. And then I really wanted to be in the mountains because I was close. I lived near the mountains, and so I wanted to be close to the mountains. So we tried to find a place where we could find both those things, and one that led us to the Pacific Northwest. We ended up buying a house in the remote island called Harstine Island in the Seattle area, which was one of the very little people living in that island. So we lived in that island. Lo and behold, I was playing tennis in that community where we bought the house, and there was this gentleman who was calling me to come and play this game called pickleball. You know, when you're a young person and when you hear the word pickleball, it doesn't really sound very enticing. So we didn't really go for it. But he kept on insisting. And so at some point I went and I tried playing it. And obviously I was in front of two 70-year-old gentlemen who were very heavy set. And I said to my wife at that time, I said, 2 minutes, we'll take care of it. Then he'll leave us alone. And I did go and play. It was 2 minutes, but not on my favor. These 70-year-old gentlemen were cleaning the clock on me, and I got 11-0. I said, that should be a mistake. This couldn't happen to an athlete like me. So I went back again and tried it again. And it didn't really work either. I just went back to another 11-0. And so like many of us who just got introduced to pickleball, you know what happens? We get hooked. And so, yeah, at that time, you know, I had, there was not a lot of places you could buy pickleball paddles or balls like it is nowadays. I had to go all the way out to Seattle to a sports authority, which was selling for $10 2 paddles and 2 balls. It was a good deal, but, you know, that was early days. That was the only place. Sorry?
Times have changed with paddle prices.
That's right. And so then we started playing locally. Sooner or later, I became actually a decent player, a good player, at least in my community, but definitely a much better player also off the island where we lived. And so the gentleman who introduced me, he actually said, why don't you go and play in this national tournament, the very first ever national tournament, which was happening in 2009. His partner had got injured, so he said, can you come and play with me? And I said, sure, I will come and play. I'm not that bad. It should be okay. So I went and played. And as you know, what would happen again? You get crushed, and then you realize and then you realize I did not know what this game is all about because I was spinning the ball, I was lobbing the ball. I thought I was so good at this one, but then they were playing this game called Ding, which I didn't know what it was all about. And it was a new revelation to me. But luckily, most of the players who played in that tournament and won, even though it was in Arizona, were either from the Pacific Northwest or were people who had moved away from the Pacific Northwest. So a lot of them I became friends with over time. And when I went back to Seattle, I befriended and I started playing a lot. And obviously, we started playing as much as 10 hours every day. And we played for multiple months for 10 hours every day. And then at this point, my wife said, this is not enough. We should change. So, and we obviously started winning tournaments and we went back to the national the next year. We were doing a lot better, but, you know, we were still not great, but we did a lot better than the first year. And then at that point, we said we needed to do something more. So we put our house for rent. We bought ourselves a VW bus and traveled around the country playing pickleball across the country. We were playing for a year and a half. And you know, we continued doing that. And at some point, I had actually landed up in San Diego because we had got pregnant with our child and our first child, and so we decided to stop in San Diego and wait for you know, nest and birth our first child. And during that time, I obviously became a much better player and one of the top-notch players at that point. And I was invited. You know, a friend of mine from Seattle who was there had actually invited me to come and teach him some skills because he was struggling. There was no coach, obviously, at that point. So I said, okay, I'll try doing that. And so I started doing a little bit of help. I helped him a lot over time, and he brought his friends. And he was the one who gave me this moniker, Pickleball Guru. His name is Jim Schiller. He's in his 80s now, and he started calling me the Pickleball Guru. And he was also the one who insisted that I start teaching
Right.
professionally. Excuse me, sorry. So then I started teaching, very tentatively, not knowing much about teaching aspects. Obviously, I was taught, I was coached by in my ping pong and tennis days, but
Mhm.
I did not know how to go about it. But I started working on my skill sets of how to teach people.
Mhm.
And then slowly, one by one, I started off teaching. That was 10 years ago across this country and now around the world. And the journey has taken me now right in front of you, Prashant. There
You
is
did
the
all
pickleball
that
journey.
sacrifice just to land here today.
That's right. Um, but I've been enjoying coaching. As you said, I teach around the world, not only across the US, but across Europe and Asia too.
Yeah, it's absolutely a fascinating story. I don't know if I knew about, I know the Jim Schiller name from your stories, but I don't know that I knew that's where you got the Pickleball Guru
Yeah, he
nickname.
started
So
calling me
how
the
did that?
pickleball guru. And I actually even jokingly asked him, are you calling me pickleball guru because I look Indian? Look like a racial profiling because you call me the guru because I'm Indian or of Indian descent. Uh,
Oh
he
man.
was he was a little scared. He's like, no, 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 no. I am not calling you pickleball guru for that reason. I really think you have a skill set, but also the way I teach was helpful to me.
Yeah, well, clearly he was a wise man because here you are today. Uh, you go with your company, Smart Pickleball. You've got books, videos. I know you and Randy do a lot of promotion with your podcast. We love Randy. Enjoyed meeting him a couple years ago as well. And on that note, I think just recently you were out in Costa Rica, and how did that go? And where are you headed to next?
That's a great, wonderful question. Yes, I did go to Costa Rica in December. That was my second trip to Costa Rica. It really went really well. We were extremely careful because of the current COVID conditions.
Sure. Mhm.
We kept ourselves very careful, and it's in one nice northern part of the country, which is a lot less populated than the central part of the country, and we were on the coast. We were sort of isolated, so we were not in much of any interactions outside whatever the group was, and we had fun time. Really, we did a few tours, but the beaches. There are a bunch of beaches which you can access to directly from where we live. The community with the villa was actually got a lot of you know, swimming pool, but also, you're pretty much in close quarters, but not on top of each other, but you have your individual space. And then you have the kitchen, you have a specialized, personalized chef who comes and does all your meals every day for breakfast and dinner. Lunch is optional, but generally, there's so much of food already that you don't. Um, so that's what I did in Costa Rica. It happens to be that normally that's my normal schedule in April, not in December. But this
Mhm.
year I'm back again in April. I actually have two sessions in Costa Rica this time around. The first one is a more I won't say basic because it would not. It isn't really a basic one. You still get all the facilities. You're being transported back and forth from the airport.
Mhm.
Some of the local tourist spots are taken to the town next to it in Tamarindo, and all the meals are taken care of. Obviously, the lodging are taken care of, and the coaching. And the other set of group, the second week, basically is more inclusive, which includes all the tour packages, a couple of ones on the rainforest, um, which goes further down from there, and all the travels, and then there's also a round robin tournament with a local group in a local
Oh,
club.
nice.
And I have to say that there's a really good level of competition in Costa Rica. And when I mean good level, there are low levels, but even the higher levels, 4, 5, 5 players, there's a really good group of players who can challenge you. So they're not the beginner series, but there is also for every taste. But there is for people who want to compete in a higher level. There's definitely a few number of good players out there. So that's all included in the second boot camp package, obviously with the coaching package. But everything else is included, food and price point is not very different. I think there's probably $800 or $900 more than the first one, but it includes all the other ones too. So there are a few more spots available if they want to join. Anyone wants to join, make sure you do it because they do go out very quickly.
Oh, I'm sure it fills up fast. Yes, I saw on one of your posts that you were headed to Costa Rica, and I remember I messaged you and said, "Hey, what part of Costa Rica?" And you said Tamarindo. So for anybody who's not sure if they want to go, I got to tell you, Tamarindo is my favorite place on the planet. There is a small place in Italy that might edge it out a little bit, but Tamarindo is just it's changed a lot. I've heard in the last 5 6 years, but it's just a wonderful place. It's so peaceful. It's calm. Um, it's beautiful, and I agree, it has a lot to offer there. I was really jealous when I saw that, so I may have to check you out in April.
Yes. And
So,
April
um,
generally, it's a really good fruit season, so you get a lot of
yeah,
mangoes and papayas and a lot of fresh tropical fruits, are
yeah,
out
yeah.
there. So that's a really good one. And the location is a little further north of Tamarindo. It's in
Okay,
a place called Pinella. So it's even more isolated. Tamarindo is not a very populated either, but it is
right.
further. But Tamarindo is accessible by car, and generally you have people who can ferry you in for shopping or doing any other things they want to do,
Oh,
surfing.
sure.
But there's also you can do surfing where we are.
Yeah, it's a great area. It's my favorite part of the country there. Um, so that kind of brings us to, a lot of people said, "Well, what are you guys going to talk about?" And of course, I wasn't telling anybody who my guest was. I put a hint out on the PBisLife Facebook page, but um, you know, and the more we talked about it, and you and I talked a little bit as well, there's so many things we could talk to you about: the strategy, the
Hmm.
game, coaching, playing. I mean, traveling and playing. All these things, a lot of what you've hit on today. One of the things that I get asked a lot, and that I asked a lot, is more about equipment and specifically shoes. So, people talk a lot about the paddle and how important that is and how the different balls may play. But one of the most important things in the game for me for equipment is shoes. If my feet aren't comfortable, if they aren't good, if I don't have support, it affects you. You think about it, it's in your head. So you've traveled all over the world, as you've said. You've played on all these different surfaces. So I really want to just spend the last couple of minutes talking about, what do you think? What and all that experience, tennis and pickleball, grass, clay, uh, concrete. What should people be looking for in a good pickleball shoe that can last? Because they really do wear out quickly.
That's right. One important thing, most of the times, recreational players, especially who are playing on a pickleball court or on a dedicated pickleball court or on a tennis court, generally most of the times are here, at least in the U.S., is more hard court surfaces. Uh, I really, really recommend you to go for a court shoe. There are different varieties of court shoe brands out there, but court shoe, you mean what's the difference between a court shoe and a regular cross trainer or a running shoe? Is running shoes or court shoes are generally the sole on underneath the shoe on the top part is more reinforced. So when you're running that way, so it's reinforced that way, not on the side. Whereas in tennis or in pickleball, you're talking about side lateral movement, so the reinforcement has to be on the side. So generally, people tend to use who use cross trainers or running shoes. If they try to do that on the pickleball court, you're generally trying to tip off and fall, and a lot of injuries have been occurred due to that factor because they don't have a lot of
Sure.
support on the side. Court shoes are generally very reinforced on the sides, on both sides of your feet, so that it actually has a very strong rubber and sole out there, which gives you a lot of grip, so that you don't actually twist your ankle.
Mm,
And so that's an important part in terms of having a really good support on that bottom part of the feet. Now, obviously, inside the arch and the ankle, depending on how people feel. But as you move a lot with lateral movement, it's nice to have a lot of good arch and ankle support on your shoes. And reliable ones are really good. There's a lot of brands which have all those gamuts of support, but unfortunately, as you said, they tend not to last a lot. So I definitely recommend to have a shoe which has a lot of support on the side and arch support and angle. And there are shoes for people who have wide boxes or want a larger. There are also a lot of those available on the market. So most importantly, have a shoe which has a lot of side support so that the lateral movements are actually supported. Otherwise, please, if I had to make any request to your listeners, is please stop using cross trainers or running shoes on a court, because injuries occur a lot, and because you grip differently and you tip off because there's not any grip on those. So
Yeah,
that's my
I've learned that lesson. When I first started, I definitely did not have a court shoe. I didn't have a running shoe either, so maybe it's a cross trainer. But I know that when I would definitely do that lateral movement, I would just roll it, and I just got lucky enough, maybe that my ankle was strong enough that it didn't completely go. But I don't want to count the number of times initially that I got that roll. So yeah, those are some huge points, and I'm gonna bust open the mystery and find out. I'm sure you've tried a lot of shoes. And the last time you were in town, we played over at Pouncy Track, and I recall looking down and seeing just these bright, mixed colored, awesome looking shoes. It's like I didn't care if it was a boot, a shoe, or a sandal. I wanted a pair of the shoes just off the look. But yet you are getting into them to play pickleball. So remove the mystery. What's the shoe for the pickleball guru?
Well, my personal preference definitely has been Babolat. As you said, I have tried a lot of shoes from Nike to Adidas to Asics. Uh, they all have good qualities in certain ways. One thing I look for is reliability and endurance. Those are the qualities I look for. What I mean by reliability is basically something which I know will withstand over time, and endurance is obviously the capacity of the shoe to run. And so my after having tested, some of those shoes will, the soles would, even though they're court shoes, they will just go flat and will smooth completely under, and then there's absolutely none viable. And so I've been using Babolat, and Babolat is actually owned by Michelin tires. So as you know, Michelin they have a large R&D research and department which normally know exactly what to do with those shoes. And the treads. So they're definitely good at treads. And these shoes are very reliable. I could use each one of them for 6 to 8 months, especially in
Oh,
my
wow.
case where I use it a lot. It's very easy to use them, and they also are very comfortable on the arch and on the ankle support. And depending on the variety, they have a few gamuts in their line, but I do definitely have a couple of them which I personally enjoy. And they obviously have fancy colors and looks and all that stuff, but that's not what I'm looking for. And especially for men, I'm not being misogynic when I say that. It's men tend to want to have a little bit more larger box in front so that they are not, compressed. Their toes are not compressed. And definitely, Babolat has done a good job in getting a little bit more bigger angle so that there's more freedom inside. One of the recommendations I would often say about Babolat is Babolat does not really have a storefront per se.
Right.
So you're mostly trying to buy from online. And whatever your shoe size is, always go for a half or even a one size over whatever your regular shoe size is, because most of them, they run smaller than the size you think you are. So generally, like I'm about 11, I normally get 12,
Okay.
and those are something which I recommend. So when you're buying it, and you probably, unless you're in a pro shop, you will hardly see a pro tennis shop. You're hardly going to see Babolat on a retail shoe store market. So if you're
Right.
going online, be it Tennis Warehouse, be it Midwest Sport or Tennis Express or whatever of those websites you go to, get a size over your regular size. So in
Yeah.
terms of that, the ones I've been using, one of my favorite here is the Rage. Uh, the Rage is, as you can see, it's called the Rabbit actually. This particular version, and the Rage actually has a really good ankle support, as you can see, and then it's really tight, and it's also easy to lace it up because the tongue actually is not separate; it's actually attached together, so you don't have like it's not flimsy. It doesn't keep moving left and right with you on. So that's one of the things the Rage has.
I like
Uh,
that.
so and this is a pretty old shoe now, and I've been using this over a year now. So you can start seeing it starting to hurt a little bit. Um, but off lately, I've been using the Jet series of the uh, the same mark on Babolat, and these guys are super solid. As I said, here is the place which is the reinforced side one, which is
Hmm.
really solid. And this I've been using it for about 4 months now, and still solid as you see for the amount of usage I get on it. And this is the difference between the Rage and the other one. As you see, this tongue is pretty much independent compared to the Rage, which is attached. Nowadays, I think most of the tennis shoes outside even Babolat have that variety. Now that Babolat has brought that idea, nowadays you don't have that tongue which is moving around, so which is also good. It's very comfortable, but both of them are really good shoes, and there's a lot of them. Also, there's an SFX all court, and there are a few other gamuts on their line. But my personal preference is the Rage. Uh,
Awesome. Awesome.
how about you?
Um, Well, I tell you what, after I saw you that day, um, you know, I did like the color first. That's what took me to the colors. Um, but you spoke so highly of them, and the thing that you mentioned that was really interesting is, it is even the Michelin Man is on the back of the shoe.
That's
Um,
right.
so which is kind of cool. But you mentioned about how especially the bottoms of the shoes, they can wear really quickly. And I mean, I've heard people say, I get a shoe every 2, 3 months. And I'm like, there's got to be a better shoe out there. So I bought mine literally like 3 days after we met. So that's been probably a good 6, 8 months back. And yes, I'm getting some wear on it now. It also tells me where I put a lot of my weight, so I'm glad to see it's on the ball and not the heel, coach. um, but I love it. I love it. So I've got the Jet Tier, um, or Tear, sorry, and I like the colors, but like you said, the side to side lateral support is amazing. For me, I love a lightweight shoe, to be comfortable. Whether that's a head thing or not, I don't know. And it does that as well. So it's super comfortable, a great fit. And you gave the perfect advice. And this is what I love. A lot of places they don't tell you, about the sizing. They'll just say true size fits all. But I do appreciate, Babolat does on their website for most of their shoes say, hey, this fits a little bit smaller than you might expect. That we recommend you. So they let you know that so that you're
That's
not
right.
getting a shoe just to get excited and have to turn it back,
That's right.
which I've had to do with some others. So I love my shoe. I'm a diehard Babolat gal now. So not only does he bring you the best in coaching, he brings you some of the best recommendations and equipment too. It's an all around guy there, and that's probably
Thank
how he
you.
became the pickleball guru.
Thank you, Krishan. But also an important thing about when you're buying Babolat, they are about 6 months warranty. Is most of them have warranties on them too. So that's an important thing. So if you have a sole which is going off before 6 months, you send it back to them. You get a new pair.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
maybe
They
after 5.5 months, trick is to sand it down and send it to them. No, I'm
Nobody, he
kidding.
didn't say that.
But in either cases, they're very good. They're really good customer service too. So definitely a great pair of company, and I truly support what they bring out there.
Well, hey, we appreciate that so much. Really appreciate taking all the time. It means everything to me as a player and a friend, to have you not just join us, but to kick this whole series off that we're going to get into. A lot more excitement to come and to share. We wish you nothing but the best and safe travels. Um, Keep sharing on Facebook all that you share, and we love seeing the kids stuff too. They look like they've had a really great summer, a really great
It
winter
did.
as well. So, thank you so very much for sharing your time with us today. We look forward to seeing you again here in Richmond. Actually, I believe you're coming out here, I think in
May,
what, May?
May,
May, right?
May.
Yeah. So if you haven't
Yes,
signed up
the
yet,
clinic is already
you got to
sold
push.
out.
Oh, it's signed out. Of course it
The
is.
boot
Of
camp is
course it is.
sold out. It was sold last year itself. So, I mean, by the time I finished with boot camp last year, it was sold out. But we do have some spots for the boot camp express, which is an actually fancy
Okay.
track.
All right.
Uh,
Outstanding. Outstanding. So here we go. We can go to Costa Rica in April, come right back to Richmond, and catch you in Richmond. So we
there you
look
go.
forward to seeing you again. Safest travels. Thank you so very much today. And
Thank you.
we'll see
Thank
you
you.
on the
Thank
court.
you, Rashawn. I appreciate it. And again, as I always say to everyone, just go have fun on the court. Just really go have fun on the court. And remember, it's only pickleball.